Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got a full review to do for you on this sucker. It's been kind of a long time coming. I got busy shortly after getting this knife. I guess I was busy when it came. But anyway, this is the Serge EDC. So just the Serge EDC, I think, is kind of the given name for this model. Interesting to just call a knife the EDC, because EDC, if you're familiar and initiated in this hobby, just means everyday carry. And oftentimes that's, I think, looked at least in my mind, more as like a categorical way of describing a knife. But calling the model the EDC leads me to believe that in the mind of Serge Panchenko, that this is his ideal everyday carry knife. This is the model he called that. So I've had an interesting relationship with this knife so far. We're going to talk ergos, carry, cutting, all that kind of stuff. But just to start off, so I didn't really know this knife was coming until it was like already out. And then I saw, if I remember correctly, I think I just kind of saw that it was like being released. And I was like, that looks interesting. I've liked several Serge Panchenko designs in the past. This one was an OEM run that he had built. And I'm forgetting now who the OEM was. That's unfortunate. Maybe it was Bestech. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn. It might not have been Bestech. Anyway, he had these OEM'd for him, and I guess kind of the theme of this knife, I should say. I don't love it. I haven't connected with it. It's been difficult for me to want to put it in pocket and carry it enough to even get to this point of the review. I've had more exciting things to me with my taste come in lately, and this one has just been a story of like, this knife is okay, but there's some things about it that have me scratching my head. So he's doing a few different versions, and I'm hopeful that maybe some of the other versions will make more sense to me. This one is the stonewashed titanium version. So far he's released this, and then he's released this same version but anodized blue. What I think would be much better is if these scales, because these are titanium scales sitting on top of what I think are titanium liners, if instead of having titanium scales, they did something like carbon, something lightweight. Even then, I feel like this knife is still going to be pretty heavy, because it's rocking really thick liners. If you can see the differentiation between the scale and the liner. The liners themselves are really quite thick. And so this knife also, like, the whole thing feels thick, but it seems to me like it would probably function as a thin frame lock if you just removed these scales, because the liners are thick enough that it seems like it could almost work like that. It's got a lock bar insert. It's, I don't know. There's a lot about it that just makes me like, why make it so robust internally and then add titanium scales on top of it and then call it the EDC? Because granted, Serge Panchenko might just have very different preferences in what he wants to actually carry in his pocket, but to me, when I think ideal EDC knife, I think lightweight, I think relatively slim so that it's comfortable in pocket, and that's just part of it. But it's not doing that. It's not lightweight or slim. It's chunky and it's heavy. This knife feels way too heavy for the like category that it sits in. This is all preference, right? This review is going to be my preference. All of my reviews basically are. I'm sharing my opinion here, but there are some good things that this knife is doing. It's not all like what's happening here. Some of it I can applaud, but yeah, I'm just coming into it from a perspective of like, I got this knife because I've liked Serge Panchenko for a while. I admire his designs. It seems like a cool dude from the things of him that I've seen. And it was a production knife, so it's fairly affordable. I think I paid $200 for this, new from his site. And it just seemed like an opportunity to try one of his knives that he didn't license this. So there was no aspect of like the company who was making it, making some little changes and kind of making it their own so they could put it in their catalog where they wanted to. This was him putting out a knife that he just had them build. So I was excited to see it. And maybe if there are those other lighter weight variations that end up coming, maybe it'll be worth it for me to retry it. But I don't know. It's not totally adding up for me. So anyway, let's talk materials real quick, and then we'll talk ergos, carry, cutting, action, all that kind of stuff. We have a ton of titanium on this knife because it's titanium liners and titanium scales. And then I assume this hardware is just stainless. If I had to guess, I haven't put a magnet to it to test or anything. I guess it could be titanium, but pretty good hardware. I don't have any issues with it. We've just got some barrel spacers back here. The pivot's nice. Looks like we've got a T8 on the pivot, and I'm pretty sure these are T8s down here as well. I guess they could be T6. It looks more like T8 to me, so that's great if it's T8 throughout. I like that. Pocket clip, it's titanium. This seems like a knife that would have been a good opportunity to do a loop over deep carry clip on. That's my preference. Maybe he just doesn't prefer that. This clip is fine. We'll talk about that, but I would have loved to have seen a deep carry clip if they're already doing a bent titanium clip. Anyway, blade steel on this guy. This is another thing that's like kind of scratching my head at a little bit. It's N690, and N690 is okay. At $200, I don't think it's that okay though. It's like, I don't know. There are a lot of other steels that I would have picked, even if you're not going like top tier, top shelf stuff. N690 is just not one that I love these days. It's fine though. It's not bottom of the barrel. It's not a total budget steel, but it feels a little outdated, at least from my perspective at this point. I don't know. I'm sure some people now in the comments are like, N690 is actually the greatest steel ever. Cool. More of it for you, because I don't want it. So yeah, N690 titanium, what I think is steel hardware. We've got a stainless steel lock bar insert, and that's it for materials. So there you have that. Let's talk ergos first. So ergonomically, this knife is pretty good. I'm not in love with it, but it's pretty good. So I like the overall neutral shape, especially if you look at it from this side. This handle profile for my hand works really well. This cutout I have found in several grips when I've used this knife ends up just kind of bothering me more than I maybe thought it was, like right as I unboxed the knife. If I'm just gingerly placing my hand on this knife, it feels all right, but as soon as I start to exert any kind of force on it, the way that this corner right here hits my middle finger, the way I kind of grab in on here, it's just an unpleasant corner to land on, and it's because of that cutout. Now that cutout is there to give you all of this hole access, right? And it middle finger flicks on the other side without having that added access. You can see there's still a decent bit of the hole showing without that cutout on the lock side, but over here it's so that you can really get your thumb in there, I guess. To me, I want a middle finger flick a knife with a hole anyways, so I'm not as concerned with the thumb access on this side, but it works, you know. It does kind of get in my way. We'll talk about this more on action. The fact that the cutout is there gives me a spot to get hung up on, but anyway, that cutout bothers my middle finger a little bit. Not a deal breaker. I can still use this knife. It's not like painful, but it's uncomfortable. So yeah, in a saber grip, that's the only thing that's really bothering me. Hammer grip, it actually bothers me less. I use a saber grip more than a hammer grip though. Draw cut, I don't even really feel it anymore. That's fine. Reverse grip, pretty comfortable. Nothing really bothering me there. And then reverse grip draw cut is also pretty comfortable. So overall, ergonomically, it's not like this knife is bad. I think if that, maybe even just if this cutout had less of a corner right here, if it was more gradual of a ramp and it wasn't such a point, then that would even get me to stop talking about it. But anyway, ergonomically, I'll say this knife is fine. It's not exciting me. It also feels a little bit kind of thicker than it needs to be in my hand. Maybe people with larger hands than mine will like that. I wear medium gloves, but I fill them out real well. But yeah, it just feels a little chunkier than it needs to be, in a way that's not like, ooh, I'm getting such a good grip because there's enough mass here. It's like, why is there so much mass here? Kind of thoughts that I'm having. But yeah, ergos are fine. And let's talk action next. So in the action department, obviously we've got a hole. There's no flipper tab or anything else. So your options with this hole are basically to thumb deploy or to reverse flick it, right? So if I get my finger in there, it middle finger flicks pretty well. As you saw earlier in the video, sometimes I have a hard time getting it right off the bat. once I kind of acclimate myself to the knife, do it a few times, then I know right where to go and it becomes pretty easy. But it's not the greatest hole access possible because not half, but almost half of the hole is covered back there. So a middle finger flick's fine. Runs on bearings, so there we go again. The action is smooth. The detent is set well for a middle finger flick. It's nice in that way. On thumb deployment, because this corner, let me see if I'm looking at it like I'm in a mirror right now. This corner comes up in a way that when I press with my thumb, it kind of hits that corner a little bit a lot of the time. I end up having to kind of push outwards instead of upwards. So I'm having to flick on an angle, like if it's a clock, right? If you're looking at it like this and 12 o'clock is straight up, then it's almost like I'm having to flick more at like a 10 o'clock, whereas optimally it's like 11 o'clock for me, where it's like almost vertical on a thumb hole or thumb studs where you're pushing forward. But as you can see, I mean, it's working. I feel it. I feel my thumb bouncing off of it in a way that's not confidence inspiring, but it works. I mean, it's fine. The bearings are doing a good job. The detent is well tuned. On closure, it's not like the drop shuttiest knife ever, but it's pretty drop shutty. Just a little wiggle. It's a fairly thick blade stock, so we've got a good amount of weight there. It's running on bearings. Like, it closes fine. Nothing about the action is like particularly exciting compared to a sea of other bearing knives out there in this day and age, but it's good. I don't dislike the action on this knife. If this is what's in my hand when I feel like fidgeting with a knife, I'm not like, dang it, this knife you can't fidget with. It's like, it's fine. It's cool. Hole access, I think, would be, if there was a little bit more on the backside, I wouldn't mind. And then, yeah, that cutout, the shape of it, I'm not in love with, but it works. So there you have that. Let's talk carry for a minute. The profile of this knife, it's not crazy thick this way, although it's not slim. It's really thick this way. I guess it's not like that insanely thick. I've got plenty of other knives that are this thick. It just feels thicker than it needs to be for the design, if that makes sense. The pocket clip has worked fine. It goes in and out of pocket just fine. The smoothness of the scale under it definitely helps with that. It's not too tight. It's not too loose. It's got good retention. It does leave just a little bit of knife sticking out of your pocket, but not a ton. That's not enough to really bug me all that much. And yeah, I mean, in pocket, this knife just, I think the biggest like thing that's making me not love it is just how much it weighs. It just feels so heavy for what it is. There's no internal milling. It's a liner lock, right? So maybe these liners could have been skeletonized at least. They're thick titanium liners. The liners are as thick as the scales are. It literally seems like pretty much a 50-50 to me. And so, I don't know, it just seems like if the liners aren't going to be skeletonized, they could have been much thinner. I get that maybe the trade-off then would have been you couldn't have a stainless steel insert in there. If the liner gets too thin, then that's a real hurdle. But some weight relief, I think, would have been welcome on a knife that is the everyday carry. Right? Like my philosophy of EDC is not throw as much weight at it as you want. It's like, let's try to make this thing lightweight so that it functionally, or so that in pocket, when you're carrying it every day, it's the least amount of bothersome that is possible. And this is just heavy enough to feel a little bothersome to me. Even right now, it's still, I'm filming this end of January. I think it's the 31st today. Anyway, right now, I'm wearing a lot of pants. I'm not wearing shorts anywhere. And so with jeans and like khakis, because I'm Jake from State Farm, and all the things that I wear pants-wise, I care less now than I do in the summer about saving ounces on a knife. But even in the pants that I've been wearing lately, it's just like, why is this so heavy? So yeah, that kind of bugs me. It's a little chonky, it's quite heavy, and it just feels like it could have gotten away with being less those things. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe this knife is it's designed for someone who just doesn't have my preferences, and I'm trying to keep that in mind and not like be too negative about it, because I think overall, like the lines of the knife, I dig. I like holes as a deployment method. The bearings work well on it. It's a good enough action at a $200 knife. I feel like it's doing some compelling things. But yeah, it's like, why are there so many things that I'm finding I don't vibe with? All right, so we've talked ergos, we've talked carry, we've talked action. That leaves us with cutting is the kind of final thing I want to go through. It's a fairly thick blade stock, not overly thick, but certainly not thin either. It's got a pretty cool grind on it aesthetically. You've got this nice long swedge that goes all the way up kind of to where the hole is up here. And then you've got a nice saber grind. I should say aesthetically, it's nice. Functionally, I don't love this grind. The grind being so short on such a tall blade feels like, if it were me, if I wanted to go with a flat grind like was done here, I would have brought that grind much higher up so that the geometry would get thinner and the profile would get slicier. I prefer slicey on an EDC knife. I don't want a robust tank-like wedge of a knife on something I'm going to EDC, right? And this just feels much thicker than it needs to be. And not only is it thick right behind the edge, but it gets thick fairly quickly because that flat grind isn't very tall. Let's see if I can get the light to catch it. Yeah, if the grind is going to stay this short, if that's for aesthetic reasons or whatever it is, then I think a hollow grind would have been a better call to just remove some more material and get it thinner quicker and have a nice slicey right behind the edge profile. But yeah, the choice to do this short flat grind, like a saber grind, it seems to me like it's just another reason I'm scratching my head a little bit. So, does it cut? Yeah. I mean, the edge that came on it from factory is fine. It's not an exceptional edge, but it's pretty good. It bites into my nail at a pretty good angle. It feels relatively sticky to my fingertip. It's a decent factory edge. And the things that I've cut with this, I've done quite a bit of cardboard. I've done a couple of zip ties. I've done tape on top of cardboard, just opening packages and stuff. I have used it a little bit for inner packaging stuff like clamshell and then like little rubber bands inside of Barbies and stuff like that for my daughter. I did put it through an apple. The apple, it did kind of split more than it sliced. It sliced it okay. It wasn't terrible, but for most of the folders that I actually EDC, it didn't do as good at slicing the apple. It was more splitty than slicey. But yeah, I mean, it's functioned. Like, if I were to experience this knife a couple of years ago, before going really deep down this kind of hobby rabbit hole, I probably would have loved it way more than I do now. But now I've just really honed in on what my preferences are and what I like in certain classes of knife. And maybe even just if this knife wasn't named the EDC, I might look at it differently. I think that might be, now that I'm thinking about it, part of the problem. Like, it's called the EDC, the everyday carry. And when you say, like, if someone's to ask me, Jake, what do you like in an everyday carry knife? I have a list of answers that are easy for me to recite to you. And this goes contrary to a lot of those things that I prefer in an EDC knife. And not only that, but I kind of feel, maybe this is pretentious to say, but I think a lot of the things I look for in an EDC knife are things that the market has like focused in on being traits of an EDC knife, like lightweight and thin and slicey and like easy to carry, and deep carry is a thing that like the trend has gone towards. And like within EDC, a lot of my preferences are things that I feel like are synonymous with the term EDC. And so this going against those things, being chunky and heavy and thick, and, you know, like, it just doesn't strike me as being that accurate for the term. So maybe if it was called the mini tank, then I'd be like, yes, this knife is a mini tank. Well done, Serge Panchenko. You nailed it. This is a mini tank knife. But calling it the EDC just rubs me the wrong way. Yeah, I would probably applaud it if he was like going for a different avenue. And maybe this is just the first iteration of it. Maybe this model, I think there are enough things here that if kind of adapted a little bit, if these liners got skeletonized, if these scales were transitioned to a lightweight material, or maybe even instead of it having scales on top, it just becomes a thin frame lock with internal milling, or like if the construction changed a little bit, if the steel was taken up a notch from N690, if some of these corners were knocked down just enough that they didn't get in my way a little bit, enough to notice, right? If these things were adapted, if the grind got thinner, like I think we'd have a winner here. But it's just too many things for me to like right now even really like this knife that much. And I don't know, I wish I liked it more, but I just, if I'm being transparent, don't really love it. It's kind of fallen flat for me the more that I've tried to experience it. I've just not clicked with it. It hasn't connected with me. So anyway, I guess that's probably about as concise as I can make it. I feel like I was a little all over the place, but I have a lot of thoughts on this knife and a lot of confusion as to why certain decisions were made on it. But let me be clear, this doesn't make me not like Serge Panchenko as a designer. I really like a lot of his work. One of the first knives of his that I got years ago, as I was kind of getting into the like hobby side of knives, I'd always carried knives, but as I was like starting to go into like the Instagram side of the scene and buying and selling and trading and stuff like that, I got the Boker Plus Lancer, which is a G10 with an inset liner lock, D2 blade, like kind of budgety, Serge designed knife. And it was lightweight and it was slim. And at the time, I didn't even know how to middle finger flick, but it had a cool thumb flicking action, kind of similar to this with a cutout on it. And I liked that knife a lot for what it was. I probably wouldn't love it now like I did then because my tastes have evolved. But I have like this idea of his knives in my head that I think stemmed from that good experience with his knives. And I want to like more of them. And I like the dude from what I've seen, like I said, but this one just isn't the one for me, which is fair. Not every knife has to be for every person. So that'll kind of be what it is, I guess. Anyway, here it is, the Serge EDC, and this will probably be the last time you see it on the channel. I'm pretty sure I'm going to sell this knife and let it go because there's really no point in me keeping it. So anyway, appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.